A reading from Luke's Gospel, chapter 17, beginning at verse 5. The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." And the Lord said, "If you had faith like a grain of mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you. Will any one of you who has a servant ploughing or keeping sheep say to him, when he's coming from the field, 'Come at once and recline at table'? Will you not rather say to him, 'Prepare supper for me, and dress properly, and serve me while I eat and drink, and afterwards you will eat and drink'? Does he thank the servant because he did what was commanded? So you also, when you have done all that you are commanded, say, 'We are unworthy servants. We have only done what was our duty.'" Now, contained in this passage is the well-known image of faith being the size of a mustard seed. And it's a great lesson. It teaches us that the smallest particle of faith can achieve great things. We may only have a small bit of faith, but we have a great God. And that's the important thing. It's the greatness of God, the God in whom we place our trust, which is the important thing. The size of our faith, well, that can grow with time. But as good as that lesson is, and as vital as that lesson is, it has also obscured somewhat something else in the passage, which is simply this: the disciples say to Jesus, "Increase our faith." Now, we're well used to seeing the apostles as some sort of great super Christian. We place them on a pedestal. They become almost legendary figures, like a kind of ecclesiastical Robin Hood or King Arthur. But if you were to read the New Testament, and particularly the Gospel of Mark, you will come away with an entirely different impression. They deny Jesus. They doubt his resurrection. They seek positions of power for themselves. They argue over who's the greatest of them. They misunderstand Jesus' teachings. And as Jesus is arrested, they flee. We don't need any pedestal for these saints. These saints are very ordinary Christians indeed. And they come to Jesus and they say, "Increase our faith." And we should take some comfort from this, because those whom Jesus chose to be his apostles, and he did choose them, they weren't those with the greatest theological education. They weren't those who were the elite of their communities. They were fishermen. They were tax collectors. It's not as if Christianity is the preserve simply of the super saint, those who have encyclopedic knowledge and a deep, deep faith. No, the paths of heaven are trod with those who are as ordinary as those apostles, those who've wished they had greater faith, people who, maybe like you, have prayed at times, "Lord, I wish I had more." And when you do that, and when you feel inadequate, well, you're simply experiencing what the likes of Peter, James and John themselves felt. But the important thing is they didn't simply shrug their shoulders and carry on. The important thing is they asked Jesus for more. They came to Jesus and asked for increase, because they knew that faith is always capable of growing. It's not a stagnant pool. You don't get enough faith for all time, but rather it's like a flowing river. There's always more to be had. It's a gift given by degrees. And we can see this in the lives of the apostles. Think of poor old Peter himself, who was, when he was challenged by a servant girl, denied he ever even knew Jesus. And yet, not long after, would stand up and preach at Pentecost, and thousands came to faith. Or Thomas, who was the doubter. Well, he by tradition founded the church in India, the church that is still there. Paul, well, he was a persecutor of the church, turned apostle. Faith grows as it is exercised like a muscle, and we can always come and pray, "Lord, increase our faith." So how do we do this? Well, part of it by simply praying, by having faith that Jesus can increase our faith, by coming to Jesus and praying for faith. These are ways in which we can increase our own faith. How little do we come before the mercy seat of the Almighty? How little do we pray for our own faith and our own Christian walk? No wonder at times we feel there isn't much there. But we might come to Jesus in a different way as well. We come through prayer, and we also come through the reading of the Bible, because here we find the very teachings of Jesus. We see the great story of the people of God. We see how God takes ordinary people like us and makes them extraordinary. Here are examples and warnings, and all of these together work to nourish our faith. Christ is also found amongst his people. To gather in church is more than simply an exercise of sitting, standing, singing and listening. To gather in church is to be encouraged by the words that we sing, the words that we say, to be encouraged by each other as we are there. Christ is amongst his people. Christ is in the scriptures. Christ is present when we pray. And above all, we need to understand that the Spirit is a gift, or rather that faith is a gift of the Spirit. As we ask Christ, he gives us this gift, a gift we may eagerly desire, a gift that we may spur on in our prayers. And there will be times, and I've heard many people testify to this, when suddenly you find you have the faith that you need. It's as if the gift has been given to you at precisely the right moment. So the great lesson of the apostles is that they had faith the size of a mustard seed. That really isn't very much, but it was enough. It was the beginning of the church, which still 2,000 years on is here with us now. So take what faith you have and come to Jesus, and then you'll realise that that faith is enough.